Hi, I am Michele, and I'm going to present the paper about calibration being a fairness requirement, an argument from moral philosophy and decision theory, written together with Christoph Heitz. It is a well-known fact that some of the most intuitive and popular fairness criteria cannot be satisfied at the same time. This is what we may call a predictive fairness dilemma. Here we focus on two such criteria: equality in the false positive and false negative grades, for the sake of brevity, separation, as which you can see, and calibration between groups, for the sake of brevity, sufficiency. Please have a look at the mathematical definitions. It is proven that these two criteria cannot be satisfied at the same time, except in very special cases. One famous illustration is the compass recidivism prediction instrument. According to the measurement of the compass, the prediction satisfies sufficiency and is, for that reason, fair. According to investigative journalists, it does not satisfy separation and is, for that reason, unfair. Notice that this is precisely what one should expect in such case, mathematically speaking. And yet, the argument cannot be fair and unfair at the same time if fair is used with the same meaning. So what we do here is to fix the meaning of unfair to mean it discriminates. The question that we ask in this paper is whether calibration between groups really is a fairness requirement. One may say, if we just care between false positive and false negative grades, why is that not enough? And non-calibrated scores, perhaps, may be transferred into a fair decision. So why caring about calibration? In providing a reply, we want to base our argument on clear moral premises and a clear definition. So our moral starting point is that we define unfairness to be discrimination. So to be fair means not to discriminate. And we use Lippert-Rasmussen definition of prima facie wrongful discrimination, discrimination in the morally salient sense. Once the meaning of fair is determined in this way, it is possible to show why the answer to whether separation or sufficiency are criteria of fairness depends on the context. It turns out that the crucial condition is condition 5. What condition 5 says is that the act which produces the discrimination, which is a discriminating act, should be, if we imagine it to be repeated, we imagine that there will be a lot of acts of the same type, an act which causes the people of one group, P is the name for one group, for example, men. So these people are made worse off relative to others. This is what is required. In other words, a necessary condition for discrimination is that one group is worse off in comparative terms relative to another because of that type of act in general. We built two examples. In the first example, scores are used to provide recommendations to users of a recommendation system. We show that, in this case, a violation of sufficiency causes discrimination and is therefore unfair. In the second example, the quotient scores are used to decide whom to release on parole. Sufficiency is violated, but not separation, and no discrimination results. Hence, this is fair according to the initial definition. Let us now discuss the two examples in some more detail. In the first case, we imagined a violation of sufficiency produced by a recommendation system that provides predicted enjoyment scores to movie viewers. It is understood by the users that a score of, say, 0.7 corresponds to a probability of 0.7 that the viewer will enjoy the movie. Given a utility value for watching a movie one enjoys, and a different utility value for watching a movie one does not enjoy and not watching the movie, we can then easily compute decision rule maximizing the viewer's utility. Suppose that, unbeknownst to the viewers, however, This is only the case for women. Due to systematic difficulty in predicting the male tastes, let us imagine that in the case of men, the score can correspond to any probability whatsoever. As a result, sufficiency is violated in most cases. 0.7 means 70% of the movie with that score will be enjoyed, but only for women. In the case of men, it corresponds to a random distribution of the actual probability with a constant distribution of it. It is easy to prove that the male viewer who takes scores at face value is induced by this to make choices that are suboptimal in his expectations. Since this is true of male viewers generally, not just one male viewer with a single decision, it is easy to verify that men are worse off than women in general in expectations as a result of the repetition of the act of violating sufficiency when providing enjoyment scores. So this is a case in which one group is worse off than the other, and for that reason, the violation of sufficiency generates prima facie morally wrong discrimination. Now, example 2, on the contrary, concerns a case in which a judge uses non-calibrated scores, binary scores, scores like low risk and high risk, 1, 0, to determine who, between men and women, should be released on parole. We examine the problem from the point of view of the potentially discriminated prison inmates. And we analyze from the perspective of those who turn out to be either non-reoffending prisoners or those who turn out eventually to be reoffending prisoners. We can easily show that if neither being kept in prison nor being released to then reoffend is a benefit for the prisoner, while the only benefit is produced by being released and then not reoffend, in this case, the expected utility of men and women is equal, as long as the false positive and false negative rate of separation obtains, irrespective of calibration, that is to say, sufficiency. In this case, as the two groups are equally well off, the fifth clause of the definition by Lippel Rasmussen is not satisfied. So we say that there is no discrimination, and given our assumption, we call this fair. In conclusion, it is now a commonplace to say that the moral relevance of mathematical criteria of fairness is a contextual matter. However, there are very few illustrations of the reason why one should say this. Here, we provide an illustration of this fact by fixing the meaning of what it means to be fair, by using a philosophically rigorous definition of discrimination, and by showing two very different cases and explaining why they turned out to produce different evaluations with respect to discrimination and therefore fairness. In this way, we don't just say that whether calibration between different groups being violated is a fairness criteria, is a contextual matter. We actually show why and how it is possible for the context to influence this judgment.